Hi guys, welcome to our third episode of A Peek into Eswatini. I am still your host, Nombusi Mtetwa. Today our guest speaker is Make Queeneth Gama. She's a teacher by profession and she's currently an educational director of an NGO. Our interviewer is still our very own beautiful Spesti Sibanze. Let's head back to the studio and have a peek into their conversation.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode as we peek into Eswatini. Thank you so much, Nombusi, for the beautiful intro. You're also beautiful, my girl. I love you. Today, we have Make Queeneth Gama in the studio. Hi, Make, how are you?
Hello, Spe. Hello, everybody.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Make, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Queeneth Gama. I live in Babane. I am a mother of 3 beautiful girls. I work for Adventures in Missions here in Manzini.
I hear you're a teacher.
Yes, I am a teacher professionally, but now I am an overseer for all the preschools that Adventures in Missions have in the different care points, more especially in the rural areas.
Mage, let's peek into Eswatini.
Mm-hmm.
How was it growing up in the 80s?
Wow. Okay, I grew up in Mbabane.
Mm-hmm.
My birthplace is Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I grew up. Fontaine is just a few kilometers away from the main town, which is Mbabane. And I also went to a school at a Fontaine. That was my primary school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Fontaine, and for my high school, I went to Mbabane Central High School. Growing up was not so good, not so bad, but it was just fine during those days, because those days are not as the days we have now. Those days were, I wouldn't say they were better, I wouldn't say they were bad, but what is happening now wasn't happening before. And there is so much change of late, looking at how things are and looking at the things the way they were when we were growing up. And when we were growing up, there were not so many things to do, and life was so strict.
So growing up at Fontaine Primary School,
Mm-hmm.
was English the major subject, or was it Siswati? And when did it change?
In those days, English was a major subject, not Siswati, because we were made to speak in English at school. Once you enter the school premises, so you had to change the language. It was really considered to be the major one, and so it's unlike now, because now they consider Siswati as the major subject. Yeah, because most of the children are now fluent in speaking in English, and now they have forgotten the Siswati and the cultures and the stuff like that. So now they are forced into speaking Siswati. Yeah.
So comparing the school programs in the 80s, let's say high school, can you see the difference as a teacher? Can you see the difference from the 80s and what you're teaching now?
A vast difference, I can say, because like in the 80s, in the early 80s, most of the teachers that were teaching were teachers that were not so, that had only completed maybe up to Form 3. And most of them are teachers that were there to practice. And the salary was not so much a concern, because they were working, most of the teachers, they were working out of a good heart. And that person would, if you were able to speak in English
Fluent.
and then you were fluent in English, then you were taken as a teacher in one of the best schools. So that's how we were taught. Otherwise, nowadays, you have to go through graduation, you have to complete schools and have to go
Degrees,
to
diplomas.
tertiary school and get those diploma things and stuff like that. You don't just get into now. The times are different. They have changed so drastically. Yeah.
So if my teacher was a student who was just fluent in English, what about in mathematics, in sciences? How did I know if it's the right thing I'm supposed to learn? There was no curriculum.
There was a curriculum that they were following in those days, but it was, like I said, it wasn't as strict as it is nowadays, because in those days only the people that were fluent in English were the best and were allowed to teach in the high schools.
So do teachers only teach one subject to say, okay, I have my degree in mathematics, I'm just going to teach maths? Or am I supposed to teach maths and science? How do you?
Yeah, it was in one teacher per subject, but teachers were to teach different subjects. And some of the teachers we could be rated as to how much are you able to teach whatever subject. Are you able to teach whatever subject, except for the one that you are graduated at? So that was how the teachers
Given.
were given that opportunity.
So in the 80s, did we have, or did you have computer labs? Did you have online classes?
Don't tell me about that. That's a very new thing. That's a very new thing. It came with the now people. I normally call the new generation
The now
now
people.
people, and the why question, because they always ask why.
Why
You
am
have
I
to have
doing
those
this?
answers. In during our days, we didn't have any technology, and we never even thought of computer classes and lessons. No, we didn't even have phones in that matter. That is just, it's something that is now that we have recently, and lucky are those that are here now, because they are they have the
Privileged.
online lessons, they have the tablets, they have television.
How was it
Wow,
back then?
we hardly had.
You didn't have one at home?
Wow, televisions. Oh, come on, mate. Even though it was a black and white television, but it was very hard. I think there were only few homes with television in black and white, and
Even in Babane Market, the
and
capital
even
city.
in Babane, never mind the capital city. Even in Babane. So it's not like nowadays. Nowadays, anybody
Every
can have
house.
a television, and besides television, we have these phones, smartphones, and stuff like that.
So you never grew up watching television?
I never did. I
Not
wanted
even
to,
once?
but I never. If only I went to visit my father, because my father was a policeman at Malkens. So one of his colleagues had a television. So I only got to watch television when I went to visit my father at Malkens, which was something that I really do, because we really went to visit our father, since we are so many.
So you are in Baban, the capital city. I'm thinking transport everywhere.
In those days, transport was very scarce, and yet it was very much cheaper than it is now.
No.
Now we've got a lot of transport, and yet it is very expensive. But in those days, we could walk from home to town. We could walk from school to home. There was no need for transport, because we could even enjoy walking as a group home, even though we were tortured by some of those older boys, along the way. But we didn't mind. But it was just, we felt it was good
You
walking
didn't
home
think
with
I need to
friends.
get a kumbi back then?
Never. Because even if we had to go to town, we used to like to go to town, especially on weekends, because we would go. The Mbabane city was not as big as it is now. What we would like the most was walking through the windows and watching ourselves from the windows.
Yes, by the shops.
Window shopping or stuff like that.
We had malls by then. Or we
Sorry?
just had small shops. Did we have
No,
malls?
there were no malls. There was just small shops. Like I said, Babane wasn't as big as it is now. Now we call Babane a city because there are so many buildings, beautiful buildings. In those days, there were a very few, such that even transport was so scarce. That is why most of us would prefer to walk to town. Because from Fontaine to town, it was just a walking distance. It wasn't
Do you
very
maybe know
far.
how many minutes?
I think it was like 5 kilometers away from home. So we could walk, and on weekends we could go and collect firewood from the forests. But we will go past town before we could even collect firewood. We would go somewhere where we would swim when the day was hot.
By
We
the
just
river.
go for swimming in rivers, not in swimming pools, in rivers. Can you imagine?
There were no swimming pools.
There was a swimming pool, but we had to pay for that swimming pool,
Oh.
which was closer to town. But we could prefer because the
river is
rivers was
free.
just next to where we collect firewood.
And
So
it's
we
free.
would just, it was free. And we had so many friends. I remember one day when I went for swimming, I almost drowned.
Who taught you how
My
to swim?
goodness, I didn't know how to, but I went to the deep end, and they saw me, I don't know,
Calling
going
out
up
for
and down,
help.
going up and down, and somebody because there was a big rock, and somebody said, "There, she's drowning," and she fell in the water, and quickly.
So for those who were able to come and help you when you were drowning, who taught them how to swim, or was it self-taught?
They already knew because they were older than us. Yeah.
Self-taught. It wasn't taught at school.
I think self-taught because there was no school teaching swimming pool in those years. Yeah, that was primitive. Normally, when we go firewood collecting, definitely we would swim. So it wouldn't be fun for me to see others swimming and
You're
I was
sitting.
just sitting lazily there. So I was so eager to know how to swim, so that I asked those that were able to just teach me how to swim. And then we had to go back home. But guess what? By the time we go back home, it was late. And at home, they would want the fire to start fire so that they start cooking. And we were late already. We had to go to the river to fetch water. We had to take big buckets and go and fetch water in the river.
dark.
And, it was just... My house was very much strict. Was very much strict because we would get beaten up for playing while we had to go and fetch firewood, and we would come back late, and they would make us to go and fetch water in the night because we should have done that earlier, but we were delayed somewhere because we had fun. We'd been having fun. We didn't mind the beating because we had fun, So and every one of us was in the same, we're doing the same thing.
So looking at how you grow up having to go and get water and firewood, would you say the now generation has it easy?
I don't think they know how to do that, because I think that ended with us, because now we have electricity, we have water coming from taps. Most of the things that we do now, we have to pay for them. Yet earlier on, we never paid for water. We never paid for firewood. Electricity, we only had electricity. Only a few homes had electricity. Most of us, we use candles and lamps and stuff like that. And if you were privileged, you would have a handy gas for cooking. Otherwise, we could have stoves and collect firewood, and sometimes others wouldn't have even the stove. They would just use an open fire with a three-legged pot for cooking and stuff like that. But then, with the now generation, I don't think they can be able to go and collect firewood. Would you tell them that? They would just tell you something that you don't even know. You won't even know.
Right.
They can't even collect water from the river. They can't even go collect firewood from the forest. So the world is evolving. We can no longer go back into those days. But now we have to move forward with the new generation, the ones that I call the white generation. Because you tell them, you go and fetch firewood, they ask why. You go and collect water, they ask why. You scrap the floor, why? They ask why, because they get into their rooms with the gadgets they have. And the only way of communicating with these children is through the gadgets. You can call a child from her room while you are in the kitchen or in the living room to go and have a meal. You have to call the child from her room.
So if you don't call the child and you eat and you go to sleep,
Yeah.
what happens?
Maybe when she feels hungry, she will go to the kitchen and make something.
They're not forced
And
to eat.
It's up to them to eat or not. For instance, yesterday, I had to go into her room and I had to hold her by hand to come and eat. Yesterday, I'm talking about something yesterday. She was busy with her phone, And I am all by myself with the TV sitting in the living room. And she's sitting in her room. And I called, I don't know how many times, trying to call her. Come and just give me company. Hey, mommy, I'm busy. Busy with what? Tweeting and Facebook and stuff like that. So that is how life is these days.
Generation.
And we miss our children while we have them inside the house. But we miss them. Tell you, I was watching TV last night and she was in her room. I was all by myself in the living room. I called her, I don't know how many times, but when we had to have dinner, I had to go into her room and pick her by the arm to go and hug and have food. Otherwise, she would sleep without having food.
So, Mage, you say that now things have changed. All households have electricity. Is that all over Eswatini, or would you say?
No. Eswatini, most homes have electricity now. It's only if there are that do not have electricity, more especially the ones that are in the rural areas. But the urban ones they all have electricity. And now you can tell even the infrastructure, it's so
it has changed.
Beautiful. There is one thing that I like with our Eswatini here, the infrastructure. Dearly, I like it so much, and it is, that's one thing I am proud of.
What for you? What is a highlight? What is something you can say? Oh, this has changed, and I really love. Is it a building, a new building? Is it the tar
infrastructure, like I said, has changed so much, and it's so lovely. If you move around Swaziland, sometimes I mistake myself like I'm moving in Joburg, I like the infrastructure so much, and I don't think in these countries, the third world countries, have an infrastructure like ours. Ours is the best, and it's perfect.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. Please like and share a Peek into Eswatini on Facebook. We are also 3W. See all the wonderful things that are happening in Eswatini. You can always partner with us. You can always click on links to find out more about the founder and the journals that we have from Mage Vivian Dumas. Back to you, Nombusi.
Thank you, Make Queeneth, for such an insightful conversation, for sharing with us your personal experiences of growing up in Eswatini, as well as showing us the differences of life between then and now, and also how our educational systems work. Please do comment, like, and subscribe on our YouTube channel, like us on our Facebook page and Instagram page. Do catch us on Thursdays. This is me signing out. Bye.